Would you like to learn how to make this beautiful sweet potatoes with Dukkah baked with honey and butter? Stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. And I wanted to comment about not just great meals in an ordinary kitchen, but basic skills where you don't necessarily need a recipe, but it's teaching you how to use just basic ingredients in your cupboard, in your spice rack, and come up with a fabulous meal. And today we are going to be making Dukkah, which is an Egyptian spice blend. And the reason I'm focusing on doing a spicy kind of blend here is to show you how once you make this, then you can use it for all kinds of things. Now today I'm going to be using it on sweet potatoes, but it is the kind of thing that you can use it on fish, on chicken. You can sprinkle it on any kind of vegetable that you want. It really adds quite a bit of zip to whatever you're making. It's also traditionally used where you mix up this spice blend and just taking plain bread, pita bread, regular bread, dip it in a little olive oil, dip it in the spices, and it makes a wonderful appetizer. I'm also taking advantage of this today to show some of my new Pampered Chef items. I've got my small cast iron pans because we're going to need to toast these spices to really bring out their flavors. And we're also going to be melting some butter and some honey to go onto the sweet potatoes. And I've got my little chopper here because Dukkah, the basis of it is nuts. So if you can't eat nuts, sorry about this one, but this is very definitely nuts. It's traditionally hazelnuts. I like to use pistachios in it because they look kind of pretty. So I've got a mixture of pistachios and pecans here. And it's the kind of thing that if you say you bought a package of nuts for one recipe and you've got just a little bit left over, it's not quite enough, just chop them up, mix them with these spices, and you're good to go. So I've chopped up most of them, but I've left some of them here. I've got the last batch of pistachios, and rather than chopping them all with a knife, all I'm going to do is just bash away here on my little Pampered Chef, and I can have a look at it, toss it around, make sure everything is the consistency that I want them to be. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now you can do this in a food processor, but by doing it in a food processor, you really have to watch that you don't overdo it because you don't want to end up with a nut butter. Okay, and that's really easy to clean. It comes apart very nicely. So then we're going to mix in the rest of our spices here. We've got coriander. You can use coriander, either the powder or the seeds. And we're just going to pop these into the hot pan. I've got about a quarter of a cup of sesame seeds. I've got cumin. And I've got fennel seeds. And then there's the optional cayenne pepper. I am using the cayenne pepper today because I particularly want this to be a little bit spicy for what I'm making it with. And then, of course, some salt. And we're going to start with all of that, and we're just going to toast them. We're going to brown up. Probably if you get to the point where you've browned your sesame seeds, that's about right. And you'll really notice this. Unfortunately, I can't bring it out on the video, but the smell is what will give you an idea that you're doing this right. So this is going to take a few minutes. We'll just keep stirring it while it's doing that. Okay, so those are toasted up quite nicely. It looks a little browner overall. You can see the steam coming up off of it, and you can definitely smell that it has that toasty flavor. And you have to be very cautious because you don't want to overcook this. You don't want to burn those sesame seeds. So I'm just going to take that off, and then I'm going to put on my other pan. And one thing when you're working with cast iron, if you make sure that you've got it warmed up before you start putting stuff into it, it's going to act much better as a cooking utensil, and it's not going to stick as much. And so I'm going to gradually put in some of these nuts. We're also going to toast up the nuts. Now I'll have to do this in a couple of batches. I could put this in the bigger container, but I'm giving it a whirl this way. And you'll notice I still have some nuts that are in kind of bigger pieces. Delicious. And that's okay. Particularly because I'm putting this onto vegetables and not dipping the bread into it. But we wouldn't want to make it any smaller than this stuff here, because that's where it starts to get into butter and the oil start coming out of the nuts. Now while those are toasting up, I'm just going to reach into the into the air fryer where I've been cooking the sweet potatoes. And this was, as you can see, quite big sweet potatoes that I've got here. And I did these for 25 minutes in the air fryer. Now they're, and so when I stuck a fork into them, all I did was I just washed them, poked them a little bit in the top so that they didn't explode in there, popped them in the air fryer. And what that meant was for 25 minutes, I didn't have to have my big oven on. And all I'm going to do is, now that they're a little bit easier to handle, but you can see how loose the skin is. So now all I have to do is go in with a sharp knife, peel off the skin, and then I'm going to slice them up. So we'll take a little break. I'll do a couple of them to get them ready. And we've got, this batch seems to be pretty much done. That's nice and toasty. Yeah, you can see how quickly they can turn. That was getting quite dark brown. If I'd left that any longer, we would have been in trouble. In fact, I'm gonna not put those last bits in there because it's like grandma's toast. It was always burnt. Okay, so we've got our nuts all toasted up, and then we're going to take the spices and the sesame seeds and add them in. And that mixture is what is officially known as Dukkah. Now this is one of these things, there's all kinds of variations of it. They all seem to have coriander and cumin. The fennel seeds seems to be different from one type to another. The nuts can be different kinds of nuts. The cayenne pepper is one of those things that is optional as well. So you just make it to your own taste, and it smells just amazing. Now, to make these sweet potatoes, what I've got here is I have peeled 2 out of the 3 already. One thing that I love are these little silicone mitts, because it doesn't matter if they get wet, and if it's going to be kind of dirty by the time we're done. You can see I've got sweet potato stuff in it, but all I do is I just put them in the dishwasher and they're clean. So rather than peeling these beforehand, I wait until after and just take a nice little sharp knife, and everything will just peel off very, very easily. And while I'm doing this, I have my other larger cast iron pan that I'm going to cook this whole thing in. It's already in the oven warming up because, like I said, we want to have our cast iron warmed up. So I put a little bit of oil in it, and it's in the preheated oven. And these sweet potatoes, if I was just cooking them all on their own, it might seem like they're not quite cooked all the way through, but they're going to have another 15 or 20 minutes in the oven. So the fact that they're firm right now is a good thing. And I'm just going to slice them like this. Just in 1/4-inch slices. Okay. And while I'm doing that, I also have my other pan here, and I've got some honey in here. I've got about a cup of honey. I'm just going to start warming this up again. And I'm going to put maybe 1/2 cup or so of butter in with that. The amount that you put in will depend on the amount of sweet potatoes that you have, but we'll get all of this melted up. Now, sweet potatoes are one of those things that when I was growing up, I didn't think that I liked them. And it turned out that it was just a case of finding the right way to cook them. And when they are this way, I love them. I just can't get enough of them. So I'm watching this carefully. As soon as that butter is melted, we'll be ready to go. As a matter of fact, because that cast iron holds the temperature, I'm actually going to turn it off right now. And then I'm reaching into the oven for our nice warm pan. And see here, I've got the pan and there's oil in it, which is also warmed up nicely. So all I'm going to do is take these sweet potatoes and spread them out over the pan. Now they are still warm. Now I could have even done this quite a ways beforehand. Now we're about halfway through that. And then I'm going to take just some of our honey and butter mixture and spoon it over. I'll get this a little closer so that we get it over both layers. I grew up in an era when the height of gourmet might have been to take sweet potatoes and then cover them with miniature marshmallows and bake them, and that's pretty disgusting if you ask me. But everybody's got their own taste, and I find that this is a little more sophisticated than that. I'm going to pour the rest of this over there. Make sure that you've got some over each piece. Now I've got a little bit left over, but that's okay. I'll just drizzle that on my toast for breakfast tomorrow. And then I'm going to take the Dukkah and sprinkle it liberally over the top. Just make sure we got a good coating on the top of these. Okay, so we're about 7 minutes in. It didn't take very long at all because I had that pan preheated and the oven preheated. There it is. Toasty and golden. Love having the pistachios in there because it adds an extra color element to this, and the orange of the sweet potatoes. So this is sweet potatoes with Dukkah, which is an Egyptian spice mix. And I hope that you enjoyed today's episode of Hilltop Stovetop, and that you'll remember to like and subscribe, and do share with your friends as well. The more people that learn how to do these little tricks when it comes to their cooking, the better and the healthier that you're all going to eat. So we'll see you again at our next episode, and I'm going to dig into this right away. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.